do this. If you're a ChatGPT user, okay, go to ChatGPT and type in, can you tell me something about myself that you think even I don't know about myself?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next installment of Azure Cloud Talk. I'm one of your hosts here, Alec Harrison, with co host Brian and our special guest, Alexander, CTO of SmythOS. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. I think you bring a very unique perspective. We were talking a little bit before this of, everybody's an AI developer, an AI agent company. Everybody's doing AI this, AI that. Where I think you have a unique perspective. You're telling us you've been in the ML kind of world since 2006. Uh, is that a little bit about your background?
Yeah, it actually is 2008 when I started working on the first machine learning classifiers, and the first things that we built was uh, emotion detection, gender detection, gesture detection, age detection, and that transformed into creating um, camera to camera handoff tracking of people top down with existing security camera infrastructure to map footage in large structures like airports and malls, and um, and then built an entire ecosystem around there for, like, you could measure how many people are crossing in a certain area to know when it's time to go clean the toilets, for example. But you could also do it if there's like an active security incident at a college, large building, to know where people are and need to be protected, for example. Or you can use it as airports for similar purposes. So the applications are quite large. I've always tried to blend psychology into computer science. I have a very large interest in human psychology. And in 2015, 2016, I started a company under the premise that Google was going to use AI to understand the quality of content. And then, if that is true, the top page of Google would basically reflect what the AI model was looking for in high quality content. And if that is true, then the job of search engine optimization would be like shrink for AI, figure out what's going on in that brain. And if you can figure out what it's looking for, you can optimize for it, and then you can rank at the top of Google. And we've done some crazy stuff over the years. Like one enterprise client, um, when we started, they had 2.5 million visitors per month to their site. Today, they're still a client. Why wouldn't they be? They have over 15 million visitors per month to their site. We took websites from zero brand new installation to 1 million visitors per month in 16-week time. And then we continued that journey as we started seeing the power of large language models. Starting with GPT, started working with those models, and built a number of technologies and businesses on top of this. Many of them went into the OpenAI graveyard as they released new models. It disrupted a lot of things, but no regrets. Um, you kind of learn how to push these models to the extreme, because I remember a time working with them when they were infinitely worse. Um, and then starting last year in spring with GPT-4, the world's first function calling models, instruct models, right, came around, and we immediately recognized the sparks of artificial general intelligence with it, um, particularly making AIs economically useful, other than just a cool chatbot, making them do stuff. Well, that requires them having the ability to work with APIs. And that's kind of a um, foundational building block of the future, really. And yeah, we built SmythOS based on that premise, and here we are today, still going strong.
Nice. So you said working with APIs. So could you clarify for me? Does that mean the AI is calling APIs, or you're exposing APIs for people to call to use your AI engine?
No, it means the AI knows how to call an API. All you have
Mm,
to give it is the API spec, and it can call the API on your behalf. Um, yeah, you can see that if you created a custom GPT, there's additional settings on the bottom, and you can add an API to that section, and the function calling model will know in what context it needs to call that API. And you may wonder, well, how does it know how to do that? Well, there's something called like the Swagger standard, also referred to as Open API, not to be confused with Open AI.
sure.
And you can think of that format as almost like a sitemap on your website that describes what the API can do and how to call it. So in other words, if you have the description, it's called a manifest. If you have the description of that API, right? An AI model can read that specification and say, oh yeah, that's how I'm supposed to interact with it. These are the inputs and this is what it does. And so it can intelligently know based on the conversation when to call which API and how to interact with it. And so that gives rise to really, that's what gives rise to agents. For me, the definition of agent is closely tied to agency. And agency means you can do something more than just being confined to your little chat box. It means that you can go out and do stuff. And when it gained that capability, that's when I started considering this agents. Um, and so this is what you start seeing when people talk about agents. Basically, they're saying, look, we're not going to just let you chat with some data. We're also going to let you chat with our internal API or something that can actually do something, and has like some programming behind it. The challenge is, of course, like how do you make your systems, how do you create these skills, these APIs, how do you create these skills to be orchestrated? And how do you make them quick? And how do you make them safe? And how do you make it easy? Um, we did that. We were the 40th plugin in the world to be released on the plugin store last year. And I'm pretty sure the first 39 had like early access. Okay. So about as fast as you can without having early access. And so we learned a ton, and we immediately observed, like, number one, everyone's going to start having AI assistants. Number two, if businesses do not make their company accessible for these AI assistants to talk to, it's going to be like being in Yellow Pages but not having a website. You're going to like fall behind. Number three, building these agents is too hard, too complex. Code, maintenance, debugging, AIs are non-deterministic. It's complex. We need to have an easier and faster way to do this. And then the market's going to catch up, and everybody's going to need this. And there needs to be a WordPress moment for agents. There needs to be a Shopify moment, like with e-commerce, but for agents. Before it was hard, afterwards it was easy, right? A Stripe moment, etc. You know what I'm talking about, right? So we want SmythOS to be that for the world. We want to make very complex things very, very easy, just like WordPress did in the past.
It's real interesting you say that, because there's even people I talk to that they want to use AI, but they want, like, so I was sharing with you, I'm at a client where we're doing AI work, And either at that client or other people in the industry, I hear like, well, they want you to fix AI because it doesn't do the same answer more like twice. Like, then you don't want to use AI because, to your point, like you're trying to get a deterministic answer out of a non-deterministic system.
Then code, and then use code, right?
Yeah, in code. And then it's like, okay, well, there's workarounds, right? Like ChatGPT has basically, it's not a Redis cache, but it's kind of like one where you basically can like cache questions in front of it, and they do like, there's some sort of like index thing. It was an older announcement. I don't know if people really use it, but it's supposed to save you on tokens, and it's supposed to help it make it a little bit more deterministic where if it finds the tokens that you ask it a similar question, it'll give you the same response.
Okay,
But
so
I'm like,
the technique in general is called grounding. Okay, grounding allows your AI model to be grounded in data that you provided. There's many different techniques to do grounding. You can give it in your prompt and say, here's my prompt, and by the way, here's an example. That's grounding at a very basic level. You can also do grounding by giving it a system prompt or giving it context. What you were likely referring to, I think, is context caching. I'm not sure if Google was the first to come out with, but then Anthropic and only recently OpenAI. Context caching allows you to cache a large prompt, let's say, and save money whenever you call upon that prompt. And so it's likely to follow that. The next grounding technique would be referred to as like retrieval augmented generation. This is where it is not fixed in the prompt, but more dynamic based on the prompt. So based on the requirement, it will then go out and do like a search engine thing. But usually that involves a vector database, but it can technically be anything. It could be a Postgres or whatnot. And then augment the prompt with that dynamic data in your answer, and it will also like adhere to that more. And then you have another way of grounding, and that is fine tuning, which is takes a little bit more time. You have to prepare a data set, and so you can ground your AI in company facts by training it on many company facts, and it's going to get you more grounded. And then we have another method of grounding, which is called LoRa, which kind of originated more in the diffusion space for image generators. Let's say, call it like an Instagram filter for AI, where you not have to fine tune the whole thing, but you just like have a little layer that you filter that you add to it. So the core model stays the same, but you add that LoRa on top of it, and then together, like a filter, it colors the results a little bit different. And you can make the LoRa also, you can also use that as a grounding technique, although this is very much in development and emerging. I think LoRa's are going to be much more like Neo in the Matrix when he said, I learned Kung Fu. Yeah, that's like, oh, you just plug it in. He just got grounded in that thing. And yeah, so there are many, many different techniques for grounding. And actually,
I think you were
yeah,
right
go
with
ahead.
the context catching. It's called a seed parameter. And what it does is you
Mhm.
can like hard code a seed parameter, and then it kind of remembers the context or the response, and it can either it gives you like more similar
Consistency.
responses back if you ask the same question, because it's like, I already
Yeah,
answered this. I'm just like, and you can,
yeah,
to your point, you could fake that if you have a system that you're building from scratch in code. Like you could put a Redis cache in front. It's like if you see this question, maybe you save the last 10 responses, and if somebody keeps asking your system the same thing, maybe your Redis cache just kicks it back. Like there's ways to do that, but it doesn't make it,
yeah,
there's no tweak or no surefire way to make a non-deterministic system deterministic. There's just ways to mitigate that.
yeah,
But if it's that much of a deal breaker, maybe you're looking at the wrong technology, is kind of the
right.
conversations I've been having as of late.
Well, you want to, you know, you want to use a hammer with a nail, right? Not a screwdriver with a nail. You want to use
Mhm.
the right tool for the right problem. I mean, there's definitely, people talk about the hallucination problem of AI through another lens and perspective. You can say, well, what you call hallucination, I call creativity,
Yeah.
right? I mean, traditional code is not creative. It will always give you back ones and zeros in the way that you predicted and programmed it, if this and that. So if you want creativity, use AI. If you don't want creativity, you want absolutely always the same answer, and you know, consider that. But creativity requires wondering. Not all who wonder are lost. And so, yeah, you can set your temperature variable um, very fixed to very deterministic and always return the same token, but you can set it up to more creative as well. And then let's not forget as well, it does not diminish what you said about deterministic, non-deterministic models before. But we have very powerful tree of thought and chain of thought language chains as well. Again, like where SmythOS does that brilliantly, you can have a step where AI generates something and then send the output to another uh, deterministic system to evaluate if it passes certain rules and then return it. So you can combine the benefits of deterministic and non-deterministic systems. You could have a request, then ground it in a SQL database, then write it with AI, then take the output from the SQL database, the output from the AI, and have an evaluation to see if the output hallucinated things that were not in the prompt. So you could also have three different models generate three different answers. And just like a human team, you would ask your team members to try different things, and then you judge which one is best. There's many ways to make AI more reliable, many techniques. Um, and this why it's worth working with experts because we have wrangled these models to make them do our bidding. Yeah.
I'm
So I'm
curious.
curious. Okay,
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was going to take it a different direction. Go ahead. You go.
Oh, I was just going to say I'm just curious with like all major cloud providers kind of decreasing the barrier to entry of a lot of these. Are you seeing more people or more, I'm gonna call it snake oil with for lack of a better term, like companies that say they're AI, but really they just like are paying the API fee for ChatGPT and doing a very simple RAG system and charging obscene amounts of money for it. Like, are you seeing the same kind of craze you used to see? Like, I feel like Bitcoin and blockchain was like a huge craze, and now you don't really hear about it anymore. Are we in or maybe getting close to the post boom of like AI agents and AI models? And then
No,
like
we're just
eventually you'll
getting
see a lot
started.
of okay.
No, we're just getting started. And we're at the very beginning. We're good.
Well, I wish I would have bought
We're
Bitcoin at 2 cents. So maybe I need to get in on this right now then.
yeah. Um, but I'll liken it more to this. I think like in 2004, my dad didn't know how to find anything. His life depended on it on Google because you had to know exactly the right keyword to find the exact document. And now we have this like interpretation layer, like you type something and then Google says, what does he really want? And then it searches for that, right? So this is about making technology like that more accessible, easier to consume. And we're just like kind of that phase where my dad found out that there is a Google after I had already like used it for 2 years. We're like with AI, we're like at that stage. But like fast forward like 15 years after that, everybody uses it and kind of like, what would you do without a search engine today, right? It'd be tough to do our work. So AI has kind of that same trajectory. I still think it's too hard for many people, although the simple use cases like chatting with it are definitely easy. The word easy is why usage wise, right? Consume. easy
Mhm.
to consume. That's kind of why ChatGPT took off. It was like really the form factor that felt most natural at the time, that anybody could just type something. And I mean, we're all text messaging, right? Like, it's common. Anybody could do it. And that was sufficient for people to say, like, wow, this is easy. Agents have not yet gotten that moment. We're hoping SmythOS makes that happen. This is what we want to do. And I think we're really close.
So you mentioned it's kind of like it needs a WordPress moment or a Stripe moment. And this is where I'm curious. And you said I can interact with an API, kind of circling back to what you said. And now you said there are certain things that are easier that are harder. So what I'm kind of discerning is maybe SmythOS is going to position itself to be that middle piece that makes the hard things easier. So let's say I take on a client. I'm an entrepreneur. I take on a client and I'm trying to process, some PDF documents or something. And I could use an agent maybe from SmythOS or integrate my stuff with SmythOS to parse that document and summarize it and put it into
Yeah,
my database now with an API call.
100%. Yeah.
That's
Honestly,
crazy.
you would define your workflow. What do you want to do? Oh, I need to read my database. You drag and drop the API component. I need to parse this with a language model. You drag and drop the language model and you connect them with a line. You drag and drop it like you would go and draw on your napkin a flowchart. This is how it should work.
Nice.
And then it's done. You hit deploy, and this thing works. So SmythOS has taken something that could take a month, 2 months to build, and you can now build it in an afternoon. And still, it's possible now for like people with no coding background to build agents, but people who have already built agents with code get SmythOS like right away. Other people still need about like 2 weeks of learning the concepts, because they may not even know what an API is or what the difference is between post and get, right? Which like
Sure.
any developer is like, of course, I know that, right? But you can't talk about a WordPress moment if people need to know the difference between post and get. So that's too much to ask. Think of ChatGPT, how easy it is, right? WordPress, you go to a website and click deploy, and you just go and type what your page want to look like. You have a drag and drop thing, but we need to make it even easier. If we have made it 90% faster to build, debug, deploy agents with SmythOS so far, we're on the brink of doing it again without giving spoilers away, and make it another 90% faster. So if it took you 2 months before and now an afternoon, we want to bring that down to minutes or seconds with our
Wow.
next version. And I think that is what is going to change the playing field. Honestly, GPT 3.5 Turbo is all you need for this. But of course, I welcome the better models since then.
Of course.
But fundamentally, the function calling is what unlocks everything after that. And what the market has been missing is accessibility, ease of use. So this is our North Star. We want to make it super easy and accessible for anybody to create agents. And then indeed next year, swarms of agents as these orchestration frameworks start to be more mature.
Would you see that replacing things like Logic Apps then? Or I don't know what AWS and GCP's equivalents of them are, or like Flow?
You mean more like robotic process automation?
Yeah, like workflow automation. Sure.
Yeah. So traditional workflow automation is it depends on building blocks or Lego blocks that are code-based, rule-based. And because the real world is fuzzy, right? It's unpredictable. These often break because there's a scenario you couldn't foresee, and then it just like doesn't work. RPA engineers have sometimes been referred to as bot nannies because they spend more time nannying the automations than actually profiting from the automation. Again, you need to change that. You need to change that dynamic. If it takes you too much time to build, more time to build than to benefit from the automation, then automation makes no sense. If it takes more time to maintain the automation than you profit from the automation makes no sense. So we believe automation should be so easy that you want to automate everything. And indeed, because the building block or Lego block is not just if this then that, but it is a fundamental unit, albeit not human level, but still capable. It's a unit of intelligence. Those building blocks are vastly more powerful. Think about building a car with the red Lego bricks versus Lego Technic. You got more powerful units of intelligence that you can put together. You can build more impressive automations, and the same is true for your Lego creations. Although I've had a ton of fun with my red bricks too.
Sure.
So do you kind of foresee cloud providers as kind of that entry level to a lot of this kind of ecosystem? And then as companies mature, or if they're trying to get multi-agent orchestration or just trying to get faster means to, like, once they've decided AI is here to stay, then they'll start maturing past the point of maybe just what a cloud provider out of the box will provide. Because to your point, you'll eventually get to where a system or somebody can pop in, land at a company, and to Brian's example earlier, hey, I need to do a complex task. Okay, I'm just going to drag and drop it, and in a day or two, I've now built this complicated bot network that, if you're talking traditional AI, would have taken forever, like years, whereas like maybe you're just in and out, and now you're profiting off of AI. Is that kind of what you're seeing? Is
Well, I think cloud providers have a bright future. I mean, our enterprise edition, you can deploy your agents straight to enterprise cloud, and they run on your infrastructure. And the same is going to continue to even if you don't deploy it to the enterprise infrastructure, you can still there's still APIs, and they can still integrate with your enterprise infrastructure even without being hosted there. But a lot of enterprises want everything to be under their security blanket, right? So I think there's a tremendous economic benefit to cloud providers for leading in that space. And we take a partnership approach to this. I think I think we win if they win. And so I could tell you, like, the enterprise cloud sales reps are craving this. Companies like Intel are craving this. They absolutely love SmythOS and what it can do for them, because it makes their job of saying, okay, here's AI compute, but here's AI compute that actually makes you ROI. That's such an easier sales pitch. Right?
So when you say enterprise cloud, are you talking like their on-prem systems, or like if I'm in Azure or GCP, I can deploy your guys' solutions alongside my other cloud solutions?
Yeah, right now, more the latter. But the former is technically possible, and that's because SmythOS is not just a pretty UI on top of an open source fork. It's been engineered from the ground up as an operating system for efficiently running agents. That means that our SRE, or Smith runtime environment, can run like a self-contained executable without needing an entire Docker or container to run. It's extremely resource efficient, extremely portable, extremely fast. And we have some people that need it on-prem. There are, I'm not going to name the entities, but let's just say large government organizations that value privacy and mobility. SmythOS can run agents on your thermostat if you wanted it.
Okay, so very efficient when you're talking even low power, low compute.
The future, to be clear, the future of the internet, the future of agents is a collective consciousness, an open executable web that is being orchestrated. And that will include the Internet of Things. You will sit on your sofa and ask your assistant to orchestrate your Tesla agent, your Chamberlain garage door opener agent, your everything, and you will just have conversations with your orchestrator of choice, and they are going to orchestrate everything else. If you are not in Web3, if you're not accessible for your agent to talk to, it is like your business has no website. It'll be inaccessible for utility, right? So this is why we believe that every business will, both for external agents, brand agents, as well for internal consumption, will need agents for everything. In SmythOS, you can set up team spaces, a set of agents for your marketing team, a set of agents for your finance team, a set of agents for your development team. Each all segmented with their own keys and security, segmented so one does not know the secrets of the other. You can set up a space just for you and your client. But agents will be everywhere. We need to really understand that. That is 100,000% sure going to happen. No matter how powerful OpenAI models get, right? For example, they will never know if a table just opened at your favorite restaurant unless that restaurant has an agent that OpenAI's model can talk to and get that information from. So we need to connect the entire world. In Web3, it will have AI agent search engines that figure out which agent is the best to talk to, right? It will have a curated directories or app stores of agents, so to speak, where you have installed agents with credentials that your assistant is allowed to interface with and log in with. And then you'll have open ones that are just informational, etc. So without being in the agents verse, without being in Web3, your company will not exist. And then if you do not leverage agents internally for efficiency, capitalism will run circles around you because your competitors will be more efficient. So I cannot be more clear. Agents are the engine of the AI revolution. They're just like the steam engine, and then the combustion engine has changed and caused the industrial revolution, right? AI is very fundamental on its own. It's more like electricity. You need to do something with it in order to get the benefit. Just like with oil, you have to put it in an engine to actually go do something with it. Agents is what make AI economically generate value, productivity, because it can actually do things. And so this is the future. Get on board.
Nice.
I think that's a really cool vision. I've even seen it makes sense, right? Because eventually, like, GPUs were a huge race, processor chips was a huge race, but it's gotten to the point now where the end user consumer, unless you're super big into computer hardware, doesn't care. Like, the computer's fast enough to browse the web, watch YouTube videos. Like, I have a feeling GPTs will get fast enough and performant enough that only the super engaged and super like nerdy people are going to be like, wow, it does this many teraflops or whatever. Like, the normal business person, they're not going to care. Like, you
I
get
have
to
a
the
little
point that
different take on it.
sure,
I remember in the 90s when I got my first computer, I really cared about those megabytes. I really did. They made a huge difference. So in the early days of AI, right, getting access to a slightly more powerful model by just having a little bit more capacity on your hardware, it will make a big difference. Today, I've got a computer with like to NVIDIA RTX 490 in like a SLI type configuration. And they don't give me enough like memory to run a non-quantized 70 billion parameter model locally on my computer. But they are really fast at running like a 3 or 7 billion parameter model on my local computer. And today that is still not like good enough for me to do the day-to-day stuff that I want a GPT-4 to do or whatnot, or Claude to do. It's still like not, it hasn't crossed that threshold yet, but it's getting closer and closer. And you can say, well, okay, so like, one more year, the models, the smaller models that you can run in your hardware. And by the way, that's an expensive setup. Those graphic cards are not cheap, right?
Right.
You can say, well, can a year from now, those 7 billion parameter models are going to get much better still because of distillation. And I'll be happy. I can finally run it. And you could say, okay, at that point, I don't really care about how many megaflops or whatever you called it, right? I won't care about it. But that's not entirely true, because our expectation of what AI can do will also have completely shifted a year from now. Right, and so why can't you have an AI on your local computer that can render video of you right now in your webcam, so that you can sit in your underwears and have a Zoom meeting and people can still see you dressed up? Why can't you run that locally, right? And similar, and if like we're going to get used to these things being very powerful in the cloud, and we're going to say, why can't we have that on our computer? And so for the next few years, the hardware from the big servers is going to start trickling down into the consumer side. And as they do, we're going to remember when the new iPhones came out every year and every new model was like so amazing, and now we're like, yawn, like what's the difference? Right?
Yeah.
The next few
Best
years.
iPhone ever.
Oh, this is embarrassing. But I told my wife at the time we were on our honeymoon, I convinced her to get out of bed and stand in line at an AT&T store on our honeymoon. And I told her, I said, don't worry, honey, this is the last phone I ever need. It has the internet in your pocket. This is the phone I need. And if I have the internet in my pocket, what else do I need? I don't know, 17 years later or so, 16, 17 years later, we're like, upgrading to foldable phones and stuff like that. Like, sorry. I mean, she will never, ever let me forget it when I upgrade a phone. Remember that time? So we're gonna definitely gonna be very pressured to upgrade our systems. I think easily for the next 10 years, we're gonna be like next. Like personally, can you imagine if you could run on your home computer the equivalent of an NVIDIA H100 in compute power?
That'd be crazy.
Do you know what you would do with that? I know what I would do with that. Like, and then can you imagine that the OpenAI service and the Runway service and the 11 Lab service, that it was like Synology thing that you could buy, and it was hosted locally in your own house, so you have your privacy, but all the same endpoints work, and you can do AI locally. We're having full privacy, maybe even given access to that local server to your kids, or you don't want them to be trained in the cloud. Because make no mistake, like do this. If you're a ChatGPT user, okay, go to ChatGPT and type in, can you tell me something about myself that you think even I don't know about myself? Type that in and see what it comes back with. If you use ChatGPT frequently and you have an account and stuff, tell me if you are not surprised by the answer.
I gotta try it now. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
can't
that's what I'm
wait.
Go
doing
ahead
right
and
this
try it.
second. I should say I don't use ChatGPT a ton.
Yeah.
Um,
The more you use it, of course, the more exciting or
Yeah,
scary the answers will be.
right.
I use it daily, right? And when I asked that question, it gave me like a whole psychoanalysis of my personality, who I was, what I liked, what kind of person I am to interact with. And you're like, what the point I'm trying to make with it, I mean, it truly is requiring you to, of course, have data that you fed into it. You cannot make up stuff, right? But
mhm.
the point I'm trying to make with it is that this is the most intimate technology we've ever created. And I feel like if you know a person well enough, you know how to ask them for a favor.
Mm-hmm.
You know their weaknesses, their strengths, you know exactly how to get what you want. You let kids manipulate their parents, right?
Sure.
If companies have that much data about you, truly, and we literally have like European laws that require you to be these spam boxes, accept cookies,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we're worried about, cookies.
Right.
At the same time, we're developing this technology that learns everything about you,
Mm.
not just what websites you visited, what you think, what you worry about, how you reason, what you question. Like, think about that, right? So, personally, yeah, I want that hardware that I can run that locally. I want my privacy. So I want my cake and eat it too. I want my AI and I want to keep my data private.
Right.
Yeah, it. I was reading through the rest of this answer, so everybody else should do it as well because I'm just curious if anybody wants to comment what they got, or if they were shocked on this, or send us a message. It's pretty interesting. Mine is, for example, you've shown a deep interest in technology, AI, cloud infrastructure, and workshops, and a passion for building and sharing knowledge through your podcast and workshops. What you may not fully realize, though, is the breadth of impact you're likely having. You're not just influencing your direct audience or peers, but also helping shape the larger conversation about AI, productivity, and cloud solutions in the professional community.
Nice.
Yeah, and then there's
Thank
just a
you. I
little bit
feel
more.
better now.
Yeah,
But
it did do a little bit of
yeah,
a psychoanalysis almost there of
yeah. And I bet if you used it with like, hey, my kid is throwing a tantrum. I want to be a good parent. How do I reason with them? Or, hey, I'm having this business problem with my employees and I'm trying to resolve a conflict. Or, hey, help me figure out taxes because I want to be correct. It's, it
yeah.
starts to put a picture together about who you are.
Well, and
It
to your
really is
point,
something.
how many steps is it from? All right, you brought taxes, right? Now Brian's accounting firm is now on the top of every search result you do because, like, well, why did you figure it out? Brian's accounting firm for $9.95 will do an introductory call with you, or you can get really specific and targeted with ads immediately just with some of that information of, well, you don't have to do, well, it's tax time, let's serve up this ad. It's like, well, Alexander is specifically looking about tax law. Let's give him an accountant, or let's give him a law firm, or let's
Exactly,
here's the
right?
best
Yeah.
parenting book.
That's
Yeah.
the future of advertising. So for paid advertising,
Mhm.
if you pay, let's say Google, right? It's going to recommend your agent. Your agent is going to recommend to talk to my agent that I paid to put in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
At the
Mhm.
time I asked for it, super high conversion rate. And if I don't want to pay it, if I don't pay the toll road, nobody's going to find my business online
Mm-hmm.
unless we have an open web. Fight for it, like your life depends on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Is there any last minute call to action you have, Alexander, other than the open web, or if people want to keep up with what you're doing at SmythOS, any links or places that they should follow along with you or your company's journey?
I'd say you can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. You have my name below. I'm hoping Alexander the Ritter, and we're going to be releasing some phenomenal things with SmythOS. So really keep your eyes peeled if you are in any way building automations or dealing with agents, and if you're part of the thousands of extremely frustrated LangChain users and you wonder if there is a better way, the answer is yes. And
Nice.
we're going to welcome you with open arms.
Awesome. Well, if you want to learn more about Alexander or his company or his tweets, I'll make sure to post that in our description when this goes out. So check the podcast description for all those links. Otherwise, say thanks for talking with us and have a good rest of your week. Bye, everybody.